So we're talking about the president's tweets over the weekend. On Saturday, around 6 in the morning, he came out and tweeted out that it looks like the Obama administration or the president himself authorized the wiretaps of Trump Tower in right before he actually took office, in the summer and then in the fall.
Right.
Where did this come from? Mark Levin. Where did Mark Levin get it? One of the most outstanding talk show hosts in the country and certainly the most successful. He got it. He got it from looking at news reports. If you look at the Washington Post, if you look at the Guardian newspaper, you look at the New York Times, they chronicle these requests. The rejection all the way through, right, so, and then everything got reversed.
So last summer there was a Fisa request to wiretap his phones. That was denied. Then
Trump Tower,
exactly,
because they wanted to look at a server in that building that could be communicating with at least one Russian.
But then the Fisa judges did allow it, according to reports, in the fall. And so those are the reports that he's talking about. Mark Levin was on Fox and Friends yesterday.
Can I just stop you one thing, Ainsley? I just want to say that this is the confusing thing. James Clapper said that didn't happen.
According to the New York Times,
according
he
to the
hasn't come
National
out
Intelligence
publicly.
Director. Yeah.
James Clapper also said there was absolutely no collusion between the Trump administration, Trump campaign, and the Russians. There's no there. Keep in mind that. So what Mark Levin said yesterday on this program was absolutely right. If there was a Fisa warrant, let's see it. And if we don't see that, let's see the presidential daily briefing, the PDB. Anyway, here he is yesterday on this here show.
The issue isn't whether the Obama administration spied on the Trump campaign or transition or certain of its surrogates. The issue is the extent of it. They ought to release both FISA court applications where they sought the warrant, the one in the summer and the one in October, so we know exactly what they were doing. That's number one. Number two, Congress needs to see the daily presidential intelligence briefings over the past year or so. Those are the beginnings of a serious investigation.
Okay, and keep in mind, a number of the big dailies across this country have had stories about how there were these wiretaps. Paul Ryan was on Special Report with Bret Baier on Friday, asked him about a FISA warrant. What did he say? You be the judge.
Have you heard that?
Well, again, and like I said, none of us in Congress or anybody that I know in Congress has been presented with evidence to the contrary of what you just said.
So you believe it to be true?
Yeah, that we have seen no evidence that anybody in this campaign or any other American was in on it with the Russians to meddle in our elections. We know they meddled. Russia is an adversary, and that's something we have to work to counteract.
So, no collusion. When James Clapper said when we left office, there was no collusion between the Russian hacking and the Trump campaign /
The question is, did they learn that by wiretapping his phone? Did it actually happen?
Right.
That's why the investigation needs to happen, and that's what the president's asking Congress to do.
You know what also is so telling? FISA almost never rejects. If this story's true, they rejected in July. They looked at it and says, you're going to be one of the 1.00% that we are rejecting. It's such a flimsy request.
Because you would think that if that got out, there would be an outrage.
Right.
Well, now we know more. Kellyanne Conway's coming up next. Well, the left-wing media in hysterics over President Trump's wiretapping claims. Watch this montage.
The President of the United States is accusing the former president of wiretapping him.
I think that this is, again, something that if this happened, Martha,
if.
It was jarring, President Trump accusing President Obama.
They haven't given any proof, but they have given Trump supporters a brand new talking point, that Trump's problems are really Obama's fault.
But they don't know much of his claims come from their own reporting. Here to discuss is Christopher Bedford, editor-in-chief of the Daily Caller. Chris, good morning to you.
Good morning.
If. Well, according to the New York Times and others, there was wiretapping, and the information was then provided to the White House. Look at this. New York Times. Trump offering no evidence as Obama tapped his phones. Trump's baseless wiretap claim. All of those things where they're talking about how hysterical things are. And yet, when you look at some of their reportage, they've talked about these wiretaps.
Yeah, the question is not if. The question is how much did the Obama administration work to sabotage the incoming administration, to listen in on them? We have reporting the Daily Caller, we have reporting the New York Times, the Washington Post that says that they were listening in, they were looking in, they were checking to see what kind of collusion he might have had with the Russian government. Of course, there really probably wasn't any collusion at all. And so the question isn't even if. And now people to go back and attack their own reporting to try and say that, well, this is different, this is different. It's preposterous.
Right. Chris, what do you make of that? Why are they doing it? I mean, if they've had evidence and they printed it in their own newspapers that, yeah, there were wiretaps, all part of the Russia investigation, and there was no collusion, why are they now, why is their hair on fire today?
Well, you've seen it living in New York. I see it living in D.C. This weird Trump derangement syndrome that seems to have struck. Yeah, it seemed like it might be a passing thing. People may calm down. And it's nuts. They haven't. I start to wonder. I see these people who maybe appeared to be respectable a year ago getting more and more and more out of control. A New York Times columnist calling for Trump's tax returns to be illegally leaked. And people in the outgoing White House, the past White House, who maybe thought of themselves as good civil servants, suddenly going out of their way to sabotage the next president in a democracy.
Sure.
This derangement system has caused people to really spin out of control, and Donald Trump has shown that a lot of people in the media are exactly what maybe some on the far right had always said they were. They're total liberal shills.
Well, and you look at the record of the Obama administration, I mean, they do have a record of abusing power. Just take a look at what they did with the IRS and targeting conservatives. I mean, that's pretty clear, isn't it?
It was absolutely. I mean, the stuff that Richard Nixon ended up getting in trouble for didn't even hold a candle to using the IRS to target private citizens. If you were a guy named Charles or David Koch, you'd wake up every morning to hear the leaders of your country attacking you as a private citizen. And not only that, but even publicly, in the months before Donald Trump came into office, tying him up with executive orders, doing everything they could, changing the succession lines, as we talked about earlier, at the Department of Justice. So if Sessions is targeted, then he leaves. And most troubling of all, these deep state leaks against guys like General Flynn, these spies who are saying, hey, we've listened to these conversations, we're going to leak it to these reporters.
Sure.
It's an actual... It's the shadows of a police state happening while people are afraid and say that Trump is leading it. It's crazy.
And it is crazy because Mike Flynn's name was supposed to be masked because he was in the United States. If they're looking at the Russia stuff, and somebody in the administration, in the intel community somewhere, said, let's take the name off so everybody knows and try to blow them all up.
It's one of the biggest stories of the year, easily.
Why aren't all the channels talking about that?
Because of this Trump derangement syndrome. It's crazy. I mean, if you're listening in on the newspapers and you're reading, you think that the biggest story is that Senator Jefferson Beauregard Sessions, a senator from Alabama, is colluding with the Russian government. That is crazy. That's conspiratorial. What's not conspiratorial is that spy agencies that are charged with protecting the United States, protecting the interests of the administration and the United States citizens, are using their power to attack. It's like Oliver Stone's worst nightmare is coming true, but instead of being outraged, the people are excited and they're celebrating it because it's Donald Trump as the target.
Sure. Well, we're not suggesting that the whole intel community is like that.
Of course not.
But it does appear there could be some bad actors there somewhere. All right, Chris Bedford from Daily Caller. Sir, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. All right, straight ahead, Kellyanne Conway is going to join us live from the White House with more reaction to our top story at the top of the hour.